around.
All right, it's all yours. Okay. So Trent just jumped in too. Welcome everyone. I'm Dr. Lori Austell. I work in the Instructional Technology Resource Center. And we have one person in here with us. She's sitting to the right of me, and then Mark and Trent. So thank you for joining, and we are recording this so that we can put it up on the website later. Also, well, I will share the slides at the end here. I don't want to go out of my presenter view. So today I'm going to be talking about selecting and designing meaningful assessment measures. Some of this may be known to you, but hopefully it's just a good review otherwise. So assessments, they can be one of the most challenging components of teaching, as you know, but they're just as important and informative as the content being assessed when created strategically. Assessments have the potential to become an integral part of the teaching and learning process, both for the student and for the teacher, and I will talk more about that as we continue on here. So we always want to start with the learning outcomes. Those should identify measurable terms, like what students should know or be able to do by the end of the unit or course. And then all the course components should work together. So the learning objectives, instructional materials, learning activities, course technology, and assessments, they should all reinforce one another to ensure that the learners can achieve the desired learning outcomes. And that's based on Quality Matters. That's their definition of alignment. And then we want to make sure we're choosing the right assessment type. So there's basically two different kinds. There's formative. Those are your low stakes, and they're meant to provide ongoing feedback to your students, but also for you. And then summative assessments are the high stake ones. So your midterm, your final exam, your final project, and those are actually used to evaluate what the students learned at the end of a unit or the end of a course. So I always get formative and the other one mixed up, right? Formative and summative. So I just kind of look at the roots of those. And so if you think informative or informational, that may help you to remember. So for instructors, the results can inform instruction moving forward and identify where your students might be struggling. So you do a chapter quiz, chapter review, you have a discussion, you know, things like that. And then if you're looking at the results of those and the students are not doing well, that helps you as an instructor to know what you might need to go over and review or emphasize more, or maybe even cover again in another assessment. And then for the students, it gives them an opportunity to receive feedback and improve their skills and knowledge in a low stakes environment. And that's if you are giving them feedback, which hopefully you are. We're going to talk more about that. But also if they can go review their quiz, they can see what they missed and then study more carefully for the midterm or the final if it's cumulative. It's also, low stakes are a great way to have students practice using the system. So we just started teaching in Canvas. If we haven't done any kind of low stakes quiz at this point, they may panic a little when they get to the midterm if they're not familiar with how the quiz environment works. And if they're using a proctored exam, it's always nice to do a little low stakes one using HonorLock so that they can go through that experience of downloading the little thing to Chrome and practicing with that. We can use it while learning to collect information on whether the course objectives are being advanced and how your teaching can be improved. I kind of already said that. So summative, to remember that, I kind of think of summary or summing up. It's usually used at the conclusion of a unit or course to evaluate the sum of your students' knowledge and proficiency in achieving those learning objectives. And so you can see why it's so important to match up those learning objectives with your assessments, because that's going to be your final clue of whether you've successfully taught the students and they've successfully learned them, right? So it tests your students' ability to apply skills and course material as opposed to just rote memorization. A lot of our formative ones are based on you read the textbook chapter and then you take the chapter quiz. And so that's more rote because they can probably use their book and look up the answers. But this summative, generally you don't really want them to be able to use their textbook or their materials. You want to know that they can apply those skills and what they've learned. Here's some examples, kind of formative versus summative. So some formative assessments could be your in-class or your online discussions, your low-stakes group work, weekly quizzes, homework assignments. And then on the other side, our summative could be online presentations or presentations given in class. Your final projects, final essays, and final reports, all those things can be used as summative assessments. So we're going to talk about some meaningful design for these assessments. So I'd like to start with scaffolding. I recommend that you break down final projects into smaller formative assignments throughout the semester, and that way they can get instructor feedback or peer feedback if you're utilizing that. But then all the pieces can be combined for a final submission. And I really like this approach. A couple of courses that I've helped design, they've got a big final project at the end. They have them do a memo, maybe in the second week. And then they have a literature review or their outline, things like that, that they can then get that feedback and then kind of tailor that to a nice final product. Make sure your formative assessments are reflective of the summative assessment. And what I mean by that, some courses have like a praxis exam or things like that. The surveying faculty, they try to make the questions model what their surveying students will have to encounter when they take the certification exam. So with those assessments, it's really helpful. It helps those students to practice and kind of see what they're going to encounter. Another idea is to give students the responsibility for presenting a summary of a unit content and then leading a discussion. And we do this a lot in some of the some of the grad level courses. They put up the topics for the 16 weeks. They have the students pick which week / topic they want to present on. They'll do a summary of the content, do a presentation in front of the course, whether it's in Zoom or in person. And then they're going to lead that discussion. So they need to have a couple of discussion questions ready for the whole group to discuss. And that way they're kind of teaching others. And by teaching others, they learn the content even better, at least 1 week's worth of content. And that approach has worked really well for some of my faculty. And the students also get practice doing presentations and being in front of the group and answering those questions and demonstrating their knowledge of that content. So that's another way you can scaffold some assessments. We also want to provide clear criteria for performance. So provide detailed instructions on what you want the students to include. This is especially important, in my opinion, for discussions. I've seen faculty just talk about chapter 2. That's not helpful. There's no real way for you to assess what they're talking about and whether it's complete. And so where I tell faculty to start is with your learning objectives for that unit. Look at your learning objectives, and those will a lot of times direct what you want them to talk about in the discussions. And also probably what you want to assess them on in a quiz or a written assignment. So that's a really good place to start. And if you've written good learning objectives, they will have action verbs in them. And so, identify whatever or discuss whatever. And so that kind of is a really good way to write those prompts for those discussions. And then identify what objectives you are being assessed through that. So when I construct a course, I actually list the learning objectives that correlate with that discussion or with that assignment. And then that also shows that alignment and gives the students a clue that, oh, okay, this is related to objective 2, things like that. I recommend that you utilize grading rubrics. This helps the students know how the points are going to be awarded, but it also helps you as instructors to grade more consistently and effectively. And if you're not familiar with rubrics, I love doing rubrics. I'm kind of a nerd in that way. And so feel free to reach out to the ITRC, and I'm happy to help you develop some grading rubrics. And then I really like to encourage faculty to include some exemplars or some sample problems. It helps students to get a clear picture of what a quality product should look like. In the Homeland Security courses, we like to do a lot of pechakuchas. Apparently that's a big deal in Homeland Security. When they go to conferences and things, they do those type of presentations. So the instructors created a couple of ones that they've used before, and then they put them in the course and let the students watch those. And it's really helped the students to know, because that's a weird term, like what the heck does that mean? And that's a 12-minute presentation, and there's certain criteria that go along with that. I think it's like so many seconds per slide or something like that. But I've also encouraged faculty, like if you do want them to write some kind of memo, provide an example so that they know the format and what that looks like. Yes, people still do write memos in the professional world, so that would be, you know, good skill for them to practice. I also have had faculty put a little poll that gives them permission from the students to reuse an exemplar in the next semester. And it's just really simple. I give permission for the faculty to use my final project with my name scrubbed or with my name added, you know, whatever you prefer. And then you've got your exemplars, right? You could also have some examples of bad ones as well. So kind of to see the difference. And then feedback. This is so important, to provide significant, meaningful feedback that's tied back to the predefined criteria and the learning objectives. And this is also where segmenting a final project into smaller parts is especially helpful, because they can get that feedback along the way. And that way they're not waiting till the final project to find out what they're missing or what they don't know. So that's really important. I know it's a lot of work for faculty to give that extra feedback, but it really does help your students. There's also opportunities for peer review. One thing I really like about Canvas, it makes it easy to do peer review in discussions and assignments. It's easy to set up, and if you haven't done that, reach out and we can walk you through that. There's also documentation in the Tiger Tracks knowledge base on how to add peer feedback. So avail yourself of that. So again, that gives the students the opportunity to read someone else's paper or watch someone else's video, then gives them some feedback, and they can learn from that process as well. And then as I was researching for this presentation, they really recommended encouraging some self-reflection. And you know, with all the AI stuff going on and this fear of students using AI to write their papers and their prompts and things, one of the examples they gave, they called it an exam wrapper. And so when they would turn, or a project wrapper, so when they return it to the students, they provide a document. And there's questions on there like, I feel like I spent enough time researching, or this is what I learned from the research or from doing the project. So it causes them to reflect on that, but also it's kind of a accountability. So if you put on there how many hours you spent working on the project, that's gonna cause them to be honest. And if they've done it in AI, they're gonna hopefully be honest and say 15 minutes because I didn't do any research, right? And so when I share this, these slides, that is a link to some of those wrappers, and they've provided them for sciences, for the humanities, for social sciences. So I found them to be really interesting. And you know, they wouldn't have to be graded, or they could be worth 10 points just for an incentive to get people to submit. I also attended a a math faculty community of practice meeting, and Jessica, I don't remember her last name, she uses the Canvas assignment tool really effectively. So she lets them have multiple attempts. They upload either their whole homework assignment, or they can do it for each problem, and she will give them feedback on that. She doesn't like give them every step in the equation. She just says, you missed a step, try again. And then they can try it again, upload it, and she lets them do that as many times as they want, their homework. And then when they have to actually turn in an assignment, they can look back on that and go, oh, I better make sure, I get that step. And she said that it's a lot of extra work, especially if she has a large class, 30 or 35 students, but she feels so strongly about it that that's what she does. And she has different levels of feedback. So level 1 is just like I said, she doesn't identify what step they missed. She just says, try again. Level 2 is a little bit more in depth, like she'll give them a reference in the book to go to or something like that. And then her level 3 is she's actually notating what they missed and circling things and giving them some more in-depth feedback. So with Canvas, it's easy to do that because you can just give unlimited attempts. You can also set it up where you'll get notified if a student submits again, and then you know to go back and take a look at that. So there's some nice features there to use. I know other faculty that use Google Docs for that purpose. And because of the history you can bring up in Google Docs, you can see if they've integrated your feedback, because you can go back, look, this was my feedback, and then this is what they've improved upon. So whether you want it to be within Canvas or independent of that, those are just a couple of ideas that I had there. Let's talk about essay questions. We get emails and calls pretty much every day on how can I design an essay question where students can't use AI. So we're going to get to that in a second here, but make sure that your questions are really clear, and again, that they align with the course materials and objectives. We don't want them to have to spend half an hour going through the book looking for some obscure question, right? Use clear, specific verbs such as to define, compare, evaluate, and again, that goes back to your learning objectives and what verbs you used in those. And that will guide them. If you say, talk about whatever, that's not very descriptive. But if you say compare, then that indicates that they need to be comparing two ideas, right? They suggest that you include a response line. So do you want them to write a paragraph? Do you want them to write half a page? It's helpful for them to know how much they're supposed to include. And I don't think Canvas includes a word count, but if you use Honor Lock, you can select that and it will do a word count for you. Students can also like copy what they typed in, paste it into Word, and have it do a word count for them there. So just a couple of ideas there. And then, again, share the criteria that you're going to use to evaluate their answers. So is it going to be based on they wrote a paragraph? Or did they do mechanics, spelling, grammar? Is that correct? How original was that? And then, or just the content. You don't care. They could just do like a brain dump on everything they know about that topic. It doesn't have to be in any format. So letting them know that will really help them to use their time wisely and effectively. So what about AI? I looked at some research. I found some really good resources from Yale University, and I have included links at the end of this presentation to those. So this seems like duh, but to determine whether students might be able to use AI to effectively complete a prompt, paste it into ChatGPT yourself and look and see what results you get back. If the results you get back from ChatGPT are quite strong, then you might want to consider revising that prompt. AI tools, I didn't know this until today. AI tools such as ChatGPT are trained on data with a cutoff date. So I put some examples there. The newest one is 5.0, which I think you have to pay for. It was trained on data that ended in October 2024. However, it can go search the whole internet. So if you told them to write on a current event or a local event, they might get a little bit from putting it into AI, but not a lot, because that's a recent event. Not much has been written on it at this point. Or they suggested that you tell them they have to use a resource that's been published after 2024. So then they have to go look for newer information, which would probably force them to go look at some published resources that are in peer-reviewed journals. So ChatGPT cannot access materials that are behind a paywall or a login. So all of our EBSCO and all those things, if they're utilizing those can't, ChatGPT cannot use those unless a student has plagiarized or whatever and uploaded that to the internet, then they might find that. But that's another way to kind of, especially on a project or something, is to say all of your resources have to be fully cited and they have to be newer than October 2024, something like that. And then the more in-depth the prompt, the more critical thinking it requires. So that critical thinking, AI can't do that. It's just regurgitating what it's going out and finding. So an example that they gave, this isn't my idea, but compare and contrast a present day US inflation using the latest up-to-date data with the 1970s. So that lets them to go look at that old data, but then they also have to go out and find the most recent inflation information from 2025 or whatever. So thinking of in that terms rather than just say, talk about US inflation, this is really narrowing down. So if you guys are used to doing research and you're used to using Boolean, think of it in those terms. So the more succinct or precise you are, the better research results you're going to get. And so it's kind of the same with this. I have a music faculty that's extremely frustrated because he can tell students are using AI in essays to write the answers. So I was thinking about this during lunch, like, have your students compare a song that was just released this year with something from the 50s. And so then they do have to go research that, find a song, and then critically analyze those differences. So just a couple of ideas. That's about all I had. I do have these resources. Now that I'm done, I will end this. Exit slideshow. And then I'll get the link and paste that in the chat. And this is available to everyone. And then Doug will also put it up on the website or the center. So any questions? Chat or Mallory?
I have a couple.
Good.
I only noticed this because I'm also taking classes.
Okay,
The Turnitin feature. Are you familiar with that?
Yes.
I love that.
Good.
How do I enable that for my students?
Okay.
Is that
Great question. So it's not obvious. You go in Canvas, go to assignments,
okay?
use the 3 dots,
Okay.
and turn it in, because it's considered an assignment tool. So rather than, it is like an API, but it's not in the usual navigation place where you, okay, so you go to Canvas and then assignments, and that's where you enable it. And turn it in all their literature state, we are not intended to be a plagiarism checker.
Okay.
Or, excuse me, an AI detector. They do detect plagiarism. So you'll get that summary report, and you'll be able to see maybe how much they've plagiarized and that type of thing. And then they do have a little column for AI. It's not that efficient. I had an English instructor contact me, and she's just frustrated because for some students it's 100%, for some it says 10, and so it's not that accurate yet for AI. It might give you a starting point, but yeah, Turnitin is great for.
I loved it because I got like an 8% match on a paper that I very much wrote, and I was like 8%, but it was my works cited. Thank goodness.
Yes.
So I was doing my citations correctly.
Yes.
And then
you can, when you set it up, Turnitin, you can uncheck that so that it doesn't include the references in with the summary.
Oh, cool. Okay.
It'll look to make sure that they're not plagiarized within the document, but it won't count those citations.
Oh, good. Yeah, because I about had a panic attack when I saw it as a student. I was like, oh my gosh, what?
Yeah.
And then when I read the assessment, it was all highlighted. And I was like, this is actually so nice.
Yes. Good.
Especially because what if there is research out there that I'm referencing that I might be wording it so similar to how it's already been stated somewhere else. So.
And you can use that as a guide to help you improve.
Yes. Yeah.
You know how you're. Modifying.
That's so cool. Yeah, I'm totally gonna use that. I wondered how I would get it functioning on my side. So.
There you go. So what other question? I don't think we have any in chat right now. So.
I have another question on Elicit. I just literally learned about Elicit this morning. Okay, it's like a research engine. They said that there might be some training available for it in the library. So I was gonna look into that. I was just curious because it was brand new information to me this morning. So.
Yeah, and I haven't. Mark, have you heard anything about that? Elicit?
It's called Elicit. It's like a research search engine. It'll like basically conduct a systematic review for you, and you can like, if you find, but it tells you how it did it, which is kind of nice.
Yeah.
So you can say like, oh no, I don't want this piece, take that out, or I need this also included, because it won't access like resources unless they're free. I mean, there's like pro versions that might, you could pay all this money for, but the free version doesn't. But it looks kind of promising, but it also scares me. So I need more information. But
yeah, and I would look. Most of these companies have pretty good resources for faculty that you can access. A lot of people put YouTube videos out there.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's blogs. So if you just do a Google search. Faculty resources for Elicit, and I'm sure stuff will come up, either from the company or from other people that have added them.
Perfect. Oh, that'll be so cool. I hope it functions like the students are thinking it functions.
Yeah.
So,
anyway. And there's so many out there. If you look at our API list, it's just huge. So all the things Top had and all these things that people are using, and we just can't support all of them.
Yeah. You know? Is that all on the IRT website, that list?
So when you,
IRTC.
I don't think we necessarily have a list anywhere.
Okay.
But if you go, like you're going to add something to your module, you do the little plus.
Oh yeah.
And then if you from the menu choose external tool.
Oh, okay.
Right. Am I getting that right? Not external URL because that's a website. I think it's external tool. There's a whole list. Of all, it's called an API. I don't know what that stands for, but it's like an add-on from another company that functions within Canvas. So it's like a lot of the textbook companies, and that's where Panopto lives and things like that. So that would give you a list of everything that's in there.
Okay,
there's a ton. We're still getting requests all the time for more.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Okay, that's awesome.
If it integrates with Canvas, we try to get it in there.
Cool.
Anything else? Did you think of anything else?
I mean, I have a million, but I'll ask one more. I'm teaching a course right now that it's my first time teaching it, and so I'm just kind of doing it exactly how the previous instructor did. And I'm finding that there's just like, it's a pre-credit class, it's an undergraduate class, but it is number division. There's like 22 assignments, so they're almost submitting like 1 to 2 things every single week.
Wow.
And I don't know how, they just all seem kind of unrelated. I don't know, maybe it's because I am like systematic thinker, and so it doesn't seem like there's a system. I just don't know like where to begin to like maybe reformat that or restructure it, or is there like a cutoff? it's too many assignments.
Well, I think it depends on the course, but I think 2 a week is a little bit much.
Yeah.
Especially if you are also doing a discussion.
Yeah.
Discussion too.
Well, yeah, and it was designed as a flipped classroom, but there's still a lot of lecture that happens. So a lot of that, like, the assignments aren't really happening in class, maybe 4 of like the 20, whatever, are only actually happening during course time, or like during class time.
Okay. I would look at if that instructor doesn't have module objectives or unit objectives,
Okay.
Since you're teaching it the first time, that's where I would start.
Okay.
I would look at your instructional materials and look at what's been taught before, and get 2 or 3 objectives of what you want them to learn that week, and then that will kind of guide what assignments you choose to keep.
Okay.
Because if they're not correlated, then it's just perceived as busy work.
Yeah.
So students need to know why they're being asked to do that work, and so if you can match it with your course objective and your module objective. So your course objectives are the big umbrella,
right,
and your modules are the little tines.
Okay. And this particular class, I don't think there are like module or like weekly.
Which just kills me. I just can't understand how you can design a class if you don't know what people are supposed to be learning. So it'll be work for you, but that's where I would start, and maybe start with where you're at right now.
Okay.
And then when you're done, then go backwards.
Okay.
And so it's just so that you can kind of modify it as you finish out the semester. Okay. But that's where I would start. Okay. Because if you don't see a purpose for it, the students aren't either. There's
like 3 assignments in particular that there's so much overlap, but they're all formatted so differently that I'm like, well, I think this one is sufficient and serves the purpose, but I'm new, so I don't know anything.
Yeah. No, the students don't know anything either. So they don't know whether, it's formatted right anyway, but you might just try doing it in the format you think, and then ask for some feedback from your students.
Oh, yeah.
Did you guys like this format? Would you rather have had it as an online discussion, or, whatever the other types were? Okay. Just do like a little poll and get their feedback. And I do that all the time. Okay. Was this discussion useful? Or at the end of the semester, I'll do a reflection and say, what were the 3 most surprising things? What were 2 things you wanted to learn but didn't? So that will help you to design the course next time you teach it and improve it. Okay. So, yeah.
We have several really great instructional designers in the ITRC that would be happy to work with you on that process.
Oh, good.
Yeah, we love doing that type of work.
Oh, good. Okay. I need help with that for sure.
So you can come down to the College of Ed.
Okay.
And we're on the 3rd floor.
Okay.
We're 356. We have a walk-in lab. You don't have to have an appointment.
Oh, cool.
We have student employees, but then they can come get full-time staff. But you can also go on the ITRC webpage, go to About ITRC, and you'll see our staff profiles. And there's links to schedule appointments with any of us. So.
Okay. Ooh, yay.
Feel free to.
Sorry, I'm gonna drive you guys crazy.
No, not at all. We love, this is what we do. This is our passion. This is, what we love doing. And
that's so helpful, because my background is in science, so I don't have a clue.
Exactly.
So I need help.
Exactly. So I always tell people my job is to teach teachers how to teach.
Yes.
I know the theory and everything behind it. I have lots of great ideas, but I don't know anything about nutrition.
You take it out and train.
Yeah, I love it. This is another reason I love being an instructional designer, because I learned about lots of different topics.
Good.
Yeah. So yeah, feel free to avail yourself of our resources. And I know Mackenzie's here, and I've worked with Mackenzie a little bit too, and her classes are just stellar. She's done a great job with Canvas, so just a shout out to you, Mackenzie.
Thank you.
And well, this is the right time. I didn't get to hear how your field trip to Japan went, so another time we can get together, and I'm anxious to hear about that.
I'm actually presenting on it in the Great Ideas in Teaching Symposium in November. So if you're going to that.
Great, I will look for that. I wasn't able to attend the one where the students were there and everything. So good to know. Thank you. Christine, you got anything you want to ask or add? If you don't, that's fine. Calling you out. All right. Well, thank you. Oh, no. Okay, great. Okay. Oh, her speaker's not working. Okay. So thanks for being here and avail yourself of these resources and also of us. And Doug has lots of good resources in the center. We're getting more and more all the time. Right, Doug? So yeah, thanks for coming.
Thanks, Kat.
And thanks everyone for joining.
Thank you, Lori.
Thanks, Lori.
You're welcome.